Hello and welcome to another edition of the Page One Power video series. My name is Colin Eggleston, and I'm joined today here by a fantastic panel here, starting with Nicholas Chimonas, Head of Technical SEO. Nicholas, hello.
Hello, Colin. Thank you for having me today.
Excellent. And we're also joined by Cory Collins in our Content Marketing Department. Cory, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Colin.
Excellent. So we have just returned from MozCon. We had a great time down there in Seattle, and we have some takeaways that we want to share with our audience. So kind of gallivanting into that, we have a couple of questions here. We have 5 key questions that we're going to be discussing today. The first of which is what were your favorite sessions from MozCon, and please explain why as you list. I'll just kind of jump off here. I have mine was really there were so many really good ones from this MozCon, and one of the ones that really has been sticking in my mind has been Ollie Gardner's. Ollie Gardner's data-driven design presentation. Really set a good tempo for the rest of the event from that first day, and I just love that he advocated the MacGyver approach. That really resonated with me. He basically said he advocated not letting excuses get in the way of you making good content and good marketing decisions. Because he was talking about how a lot of roadblocks are pretty simple or pretty, that are kind of, not as big a roadblock as we really think. And so to really just MacGyver it and make it happen anyway with what you have at hand. And then real quick, we were lucky enough to be there on Sunday for the workshops, which were really fantastic. And a shout out to Russ Jones and his workshop on link building. One of the greatest takeaways from that was just talking about the way that we approach a good way to approach link building for finding prospecting sites to kind of help drive content decisions as opposed to kind of the other way around. And then he had some really good takeaways about link building to scale. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Huge shout out to Russ Jones, 100%. That was definitely my favorite session. And to be fair, I don't know that was necessarily a session. It was their workshop on Sunday, which, side note, I definitely recommend they do again, although maybe not on Sunday. It was a little bit of a...
And this was Moz's first year doing workshop style early sessions before the event, Sunday afternoon, noon to 5. 6 different sessions you could choose from. You had to go to 3 of the 6 or 3 of the 5, and it was like classroom style. You could interrupt kind of anytime, raise your hand, ask a question, ask the speaker to clarify on what they're talking about. The technical SEO session was one of my favorite from Brittany. Is Mueller or Mueller, the in-house?
Mueller.
Brittany Mueller, the in-house SEO from Moz. She was really just talking about experiments she's done, and then we kind of talk around the room about various experiences different SEOs in the room had. It was all really awesome. And that was like the most actionable type of conference session I'd ever been to. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Cory.
Yeah, I just would agree with what Colin was saying before about Russ Jones's scaling link building. It was one of the most actionable presentations I've ever been a part of, and he shared a lot of really interesting firsthand knowledge that it's really interesting because here at Page One Power we build thousands of links each month, a lot of links, and to see how another organization, or at least someone from another organization, had that experience and had gone about it in a slightly different way, it was just very fascinating. Really loved that presentation. A few others I really enjoyed from the actual conference. Ian Lurie from Portent, awesome guy. He talked about how to be a badger instead of a unicorn, and that really just spoke to the SEO in me, like my SEO experience, where we're really just trying to optimize. We're not trying to go viral. We're just trying to optimize, make the small adjustments clients need to really see that effect, that result, that impact. And his entire presentation was like what to do when you have incredible budget and you have a ton of challenges to face, how to be a badger, essentially, like make minor adjustments for success as opposed to trying to go viral. I mean, there's just nothing more to say except that should be every SEO's mantra. I also really liked Will Reynolds and Matthew Barbies for a little bit more on the inspirational side. Will Reynolds was much more about, I want to be thanked instead of ranked, which I think goes a little bit against the mantra of most SEOs, but he really spoke to the intent of search, of answering questions and driving business decisions with what you're doing, what you're trying to rank. And he used personal examples and some other examples as well, but that we often overlook as SEOs is like, we're just trying to get ranked, but we're not thinking about the bigger picture of what kind of result are we serving to users, and then is it actually helping them, and is it going to help the business that we rank? Because like, I can speak from firsthand knowledge that I can drive traffic to pretty much any site, but is that traffic going to be helpful? No, not unless I'm strategic and intentional about what kind of traffic I'm driving, what kind of terms I'm targeting, and really thinking about searcher intent. And Matthew Barbies was fairly similar. He talked about basically the value of search and different channels and how to be prepared as a marketer. And it was probably more inspirational, although he shared some really great SEO examples, but they just were both fantastic presenters. And one of the things that I think people go to conferences for is for that inspiration, to get back to the organization that you work and have that motivation to go back and try and change things and make things better. And I definitely got those two from Will and from Matthew.
Yeah, I think you raised a really good point about conferences in general, but especially MozCon. Like a lot of people I've talked to kind of hold this opinion that, like, if you're already an advanced marketer, it might not have that much to offer you. And like that, if you're a beginner level, there's tons of interesting information you've probably never heard of before that you're going to be exposed to through a lot of different conferences. But as you gain, experience and you just have like really formed opinions and whatnot, you might find yourself disagreeing, that sort of thing. But like, I think you raise a good point that there's a different type of session. There's inspirational sessions that, like, that's the purpose of that. But I actually found that there were actionable advanced sessions, especially with the addition of the sessions, the workshop sessions on Sunday. Like that was a huge value to me, to be able to just kind of stop the presenter when necessary. And like many people would do that in the audience and even raise questions that I hadn't thought of. Like I was kind of nodding my head with what the presenter was saying, but then someone raised their hand and was like, wait, but what about this? I hadn't thought about that either. And then the whole room had a discussion about it. And you walk away with like the perspective of 50 people. Or, these were actually pretty small classrooms. They were like 20 to 30 people.
It's pretty amazing the intimacy level at that level when you're like 50 tops compared to 1,500 people in a bright room with flashing lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot different. And actually the technical SEO session, I think it is Brittany Moeller. It's spelled Muller is how her last name is spelled.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's Moeller. It might be pronounced Mueller. I'm not sure. You'll have to email her and ask. But her session, it was like all about technical SEO experimentation for Moz.com. And I mean, there's like 15 people in the room, all just advanced technical SEOs, all with a there was some debating going on. Like it was a great session, and I walked away super impressed with her knowledge. And it was cool just to hear, some of the upper level experimentation Moz is doing, such a powerful domain, and she's doing like a lot of crazy stuff. That's not, I don't know. The thing I loved about that session the most is that she pushed the idea that SEO is about building hypotheses based on the data and observations you can gather, but then experimenting. And there could always be a different answer than you expect. Like, I think there's a lot of sessions in SEO you go through where it's just like, it's this way, and this is the white hat way. It's like, well, things change all the time. So that was a really good session in my opinion. I really liked the in-house SEO from Dick's Sporting Goods. Her name was Katie Cunningham. Her presentation was called How to Build an SEO Intent-Based Framework for Any Business. But she focused it on the migration process Dick's went through. They were changing CMSs, and all these URLs were changing, and they had to map out thousands of redirects. And it was just really interesting to hear like the pain points of an enterprise level in-house SEO with a really small team. And for me personally, like I offer technical SEO auditing services from Page One Power to our clients, oftentimes in-house SEOs at bigger companies where they have a lot of bureaucracy they have to go through. We actually did a really good enterprise level technical SEO webinar a few months back with Patrick Stocks and Paul Shapiro and the local guy, the other guy from Boise. I can't believe his name's escaping me right now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, and now it's escaping me as well.
We did 2 of them. Anyways, go look it up. Marshall Simmons. Yeah, jeez. I hope he doesn't listen to this. But he's really smart. He's been in the industry for like 20 years. But it was just interesting to hear like her perspective, kind of the pain points they go through, and she also shared a really good framework for how to think about keyword research in some unique ways that I do a lot of keyword research, and there was still some new takeaways for me to think about from that. So that was definitely one of my favorites too.
I have to say, Brittany Mueller, the name we'll never know now. Her session on Wednesday, which was the bigger one at the actual conference, was really good too. I really enjoyed that. And one of her messages was like, don't let things be holy to the organization. You have to go in and like challenge assumptions. And the example behind this was all the profile pages on Moz. Like Moz is all about. She was like, look at the index bloat happening here. Look at the crawl budget that we're wasting on literal profile pages that serve no value to search. And she cut the volume by like 75,000 pages by no indexing a bunch, right?
Yeah, it's pruning the website down.
Just pruning the website. And it was such a controversial idea for Moz, but like such a normal idea for SEOs. And it was amazing to see her share that example and then show results right after. And it was like, from what I remember, it was like a huge bounce up, right?
Yeah, she saw like an immediate improvement. What she was watching is the log files afterwards and seeing which pages Googlebot was requesting, and Googlebot and other search crawlers were crawling a lot of the profile pages with a majority of their time. It's been like 80% of their time. Out of all the pages they crawled, 80% of the pages crawled were just empty profile pages. So then after no indexing them, no indexing them, actually, it's interesting because no index doesn't dictate crawl, right? No index dictates what goes in the index. So a page that has no index on it can still be crawled. But after she no indexed this huge amount of profile pages, Googlebot then was crawling more important pages more frequently and the profile pages less. So it did actually help with that. It's interesting.
I mean, it makes sense though, because why would Google waste their time crawling a bunch of pages that they're not going to index?
Especially like, we've already seen these profile pages with a no index tag the past 10 times in a row. We've seen them for the past month, so let's stop crawling these.
Yeah.
And there was an uplift in the ranking, interestingly enough, for other important pages. Just because Google's spending their time crawling those pages more, they're also associating more value to them.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And that's kind of the whole theory behind crawl budget and website pruning. Bill Sebald has done a really amazing webinar on the Moz platform, actually partnered with Moz. I think it's on their website, about the point of pruning your website down to optimize crawl budget and the positive effects that can have. And this was just a practical example of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. There was just so much going on at MozCon this year that it's really hard to kind of encapsulate it all. But I think I think that was a really good take on it there. So that brings us to the next question here. So aside from sessions, what did you enjoy most about MozCon? I'll start us off again here. One of the things that kind of surprised and delighted me really was just the industry professionals themselves and a lot of the Moz luminaries that from my little experience out, here in Boise, Idaho, to actually be in the same room and to be talking with and having lunch with a lot of really great industry luminaries was just so fantastic. It really just opened up a lot of kind of a lot of possibilities, a lot of really great, really great conversations. Like I had a great encounter with Dr. Pete. Shout out to Dr. Pete, who was just so respectful and so nice to me. And I asked him some, from my limited knowledge on technical SEO topics that he covered in his keyword talk on Sunday. I had a couple clarifying questions, and he took the time out of his busy day and talked to me. So that was amazing, and I really enjoyed that about MozCon. And then just meeting everyone else, the everyone else that the attendees were so wonderful, and it just speaks really highly of the caliber of people that are drawn to our industry. I think it's really I think it's really great. So that was mine. What about you guys?
Birds of a feather tables were really cool. It was nice to just sit down over some food we actually chose the Russ Jones table, surprise, surprise, since we all loved that session most. And it was really nice to have a face-to-face conversation with Russ and 10 other link building focused individuals, professionals at the table that, and all from different types of link building, like companies that all did it in very different ways and just cool. It's always nice. I honestly, I love, we get to see BuzzStream. They're always there.
Yes.
We're BuzzStream, and they always have a booth there, so we get to hang out with them a little bit. And it's just nice to see people that you've met on the internet and had copious amounts of conversations with and never really met physically. I ran into Joel Kletke, who also was one of my favorite sessions, by the way. It's his first MozCon he presented at ever. And it's just a 20-minute session on copywriting, which isn't really even my avenue, but it was still so actionable and so smart. Things that I can, even as I'm doing technical SEO auditing, there's oftentimes copy editing things we'll just notice and pass along to the client. Even just those little things, helps improve the product I'm delivering. And he's a really smart guy. So it was cool to run into him at the MozCon after event at the garage and just shake his hand and smile at him. You're a smart guy. It's cool to meet you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would echo that exactly. When I think about MozCon, I think of the conference and how great it is. But honestly, especially within the SEO world, I think sometimes we can all see each other on the internet and have that human disconnect. Whereas when you're at the conference, it's amazing how many wonderful people we have within our industry and how nice everyone is and how wonderful it is to put a face to the name and shake someone's hand and have a 30-minute conversation with them where it really clicks that this is a person that I know, I've spoken to online, but I've never actually met in person. And it changes a relationship, and it's wonderful. And honestly, I would echo again what Colin said, where it just really emphasizes how many wonderful people there are in the industry and how little ego there is with most of the entire industry. Anyone's willing to have a conversation about SEO, which let me tell you, in the real world is really hard to find. So it's nice to meet birds of a feather, as they say.
That's true.
Yeah.
Excellent. Huge shout out to BuzzStream as well. And they're amazing as ever. So that was just a great team to be working with. So what did you not expect from MozCon that yet you really appreciated? So mine that I didn't really expect was aside from the great people, because I'd never met Rand in person. I'd seen him speak before, but just the fact that how accessible a lot of the speakers were and everyone was so great. This might just be me, but I get starstruck pretty easily. So if I see someone that I've seen a lot online in person, I'm just I kind of just stare and I'm kind of in awe. So that was really great. And honestly, it was organized really well. I guess I should have expected that. But it was everything just really ran like a Swiss watch. And that just really made it just really kind of sealed the deal as far as how everything went, and just the level of professionalism there was reflected in that.
For me, it was the level of candor and just honesty from Moz employees about some of the inefficacies and inabilities of their tool suite. Like, it's pretty well known that they're working on improving their backlink index right now, and that it's been kind of subpar to other options like Majestic and Ahrefs for a while. And I met, like, first of all, we're in Russ Jones' link building session. He's offering link building advice, prospecting. He's like, for these things you might use Moz, but for these specific things, just don't use Moz for this thing. Not until a few months from now when we update the index and we really have a better tool for that. But right now, like, just use Majestic or use that. Like, and it was just interesting kind of to hear that advice. And even as I met one of the engineers that was at the MozCon
Super nice
garage.
guy. Yeah.
He was great.
Super nice, and like really went into a lot of detail of like just some of the interesting struggles they've dealt with, and like it's like, yeah, like we knew that this was a problem, we had to fix it. I don't know. It was just like I think there's a lot of opinion out there in the industry, unfairly given to Moz sometimes, that it's like just Moz drinks the Moz Kool-Aid, and everyone that likes Moz drinks it too. And I don't know that that's so true. Like, I think there was a lot of honesty and just like appreciation for the fact that like that was a shortcoming of their tool and that they're working on it. I'm really excited for it to be a better aspect of their tool, because like I want more backlinks. I want to support Moz and claim they have an awesome index, but it's for now I use Majestic and Google Webmaster Tools and whatever other sources, but I'm hoping really soon we'll get to use Moz too.
I think my non-expected, appreciated takeaway was birds of a feather. As you were saying before, it was really cool to sit down and hear everyone else's struggles within building and hear Russ talk about things. And I mean, it's one thing to be in a classroom, it's yet another to be sitting at table eating lunch with all these people. It was just a very humanizing element, and it was just really cool to sit down and talk and hear everyone else share struggles and solutions and ideas. And even after everyone else left, Nich and I were sitting there with Russ for another like 45 minutes, hour.
He was super gracious, and like we got to the table. We were one of the first ones into the lunch hall, and already the table was filled up for the Russ Jones, and even a couple other speakers' tables were already filled up. We're like, dang. How do you get, is there a sign up list? Really? It's like, no, it's just first come, first serve. But they were all gracious. Like, they just hung out as long as someone wanted to sit down at the table with them. Once someone got up, someone would like sit down again, and the speaker stayed. And Russ hung out until there was like nobody else.
I mean, the next session was like well into it already, and we were just sitting there hanging out with them.
It's cool. And I gained a ton of knowledge during that. Like, it was very valuable.
Super smart guy. Yeah, super smart. So I really enjoyed that, and I did not expect that. So that was cool.
Excellent. And almost the second to last question here. What will you do differently at your next MozCon, if we're going next year or thereafter? I know one thing that is definitely top of my list: bring more comfortable shoes. That was a lesson learned. On
one of my Achilles tendons walking around.
Yeah. Nich had a injury. I was plagued by a sore feet as well. About 14,000 to 16,000 steps per day is what I averaged according to my Fitbit. So just be aware of that. And one thing is I have a goal to mingle more in the session breaks. So I did plenty of mingling at lunch, breakfast, and after hours and whatnot. But the session breaks where people you get like 15 minutes and to go through and grab some coffee. I think that would have been a really good time to do a little bit more kind of mingling, getting to know more people. So there's that, and then caffeine pills because for the afternoon sessions is definitely a must on next year.
I think it's it's really easy to go through MozCon and just kind of go to the sessions, and there's a lot of pre-planned events for you to do and everything. It's really easy to forget to reach out to people that you might know might be there, and end up at the end of the event finding out they were there, and you missed an opportunity to meet them and hang out with them. And there's a couple opportunities for like that for me where it's just like, dang it, I should have maybe put some tweets out like a week in advance rather than just like, wow, I was there and seat of my pants kind of. So that it's always good to just think about that in advance. Like if you have a client list, send an email out and just tell all your clients, hey, we're going to be there. Let us know if you'll be there too. We'd love to take you lunch or something, you know.
Oh, and one thing that would have come in handy about 3 or 4 times during the week, bring a portable cell phone recharger, right? Like
Yeah.
one of those one of those power bank things.
Yeah.
Bring 1 or 2 of those bad boys because there were definitely a couple some instances where phones were running out of batteries at inopportune times, and it could also be a safety thing too. If you're trying to get home and it's late and you're in an unfamiliar city and you have a dead phone, that's less than ideal. So, yeah, phone chargers.
Seattle's not that dangerous. So.
No, Seattle's pretty good.
My little sister lives there, but it's safe.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Shout out to Seattle, wonderful city, but yeah, definitely always be prepared is the motto there.
No.
Any other thoughts on this?
No, I would again just echo what both of you said. One other one, if this is your first MozCon, I would definitely make sure you have a hotel very near the event center. It makes a huge difference just to be able to go back to your room pretty quickly if you need to for whatever reason. And a lot of the networking events are slated at like 7, and I think the event ends at 5. So if you're burning an hour travel time just to get back and forth from your hotel room, then you don't have much time for dinner and you're going to be late to the networking event. And so really make sure you have a hotel room nearby. It makes a huge difference. The other thing is I would echo what Chimonas said. Nicholas Chimonas.
Hello.
I was more prepared this year than I was the previous year. This was my second year going. But I think there's a level more I can take it, and so I definitely want to be more prepared next year. And
in terms of getting the networking like lined up, being like,
yeah, we met a lot of awesome people that we wanted to be meeting and like that we've known in the industry for a while. But there's so many people there, it's unbelievable.
Right.
So it's hard.
I mean, how many people were at this? 8,000.
I don't know.
It was a big conference hall.
It's a big conference hall, though. Yeah, it's a big conference.
Yeah, the Seattle Convention Center is great. I was there for PAX a couple of years back, which was amazing. So, all right. So closing thoughts for MozCon. One of the things I would definitely change up, and I actually filled this out in the MozCon suggestion survey. I'd really like to see a variation in the presentation formats. It was basically kind of like, every single one of them was a solo presenter with a slide deck on the stage, right there with no audience interaction. And so I would really, and those are great, and that works really well, obviously, which is why it's such a standard format. I would love to see maybe even a panel on there, or even just a whole session where maybe a solo presenter goes up there, but maybe for a half hour or 2/3 of the session, they just answer questions because they just open up and say, hey, I'm an industry expert in this area. If your company or your agent, if your agency is running into these issues, how can I help you? How can I give you my expert advice? I think that would be great because a lot of these presentations, they can't be one size fits all. No matter how amazing they are, they can't be one size fits all. And so I think a lot of people probably had questions that didn't get to have them addressed. So that would be one thing I would kind of change around for next time.
One thing I'd really like to see addressed is how SEOs are specifically dealing with the content production that their marketing team is doing or whoever's managing the website. So much of the sessions talked about, I have a content marketing background as well. I got my degree in journalism and English, so a lot of my foray into SEO started as producing content. But it was interesting hearing so many people talk about and link SEO to content, which is fair. It's one of the top 2 signals, right? Content and links, according to Google. But one of the struggles that we often see on the agency side, and that I think a lot of in-house people see, is like, how do you help shape what content is created, how it's created, where it's created, website management, all of that. There's so much intricacy that goes into the interplay between SEO and content, and I would just love to hear more firsthand accounts of how you negotiate that and how you deal with that as an SEO. If you're saying to me that as an SEO, one of my biggest concerns is content, well, how much influence do I actually have over the content that's produced? I think that that's a pain point for a lot of SEOs, and I would love to have seen that addressed more rather than just a holistic point of SEO is content, content is SEO. That's my closing
It's
thought.
certainly been a strong message for a while that what you need to do is convince your budget and stakeholders that investing in this content is going to pay off, and there is, it's worth it. There's serendipitous gains, non-measurable gains, intangible, all kinds of things, and like, it's the right thing to do, so you do it. But there's not a lot of focus on how you really, make tangible the ROI of that, or lead with what you expect or how you project what that ROI might be.
Or even just executing. Okay, say everyone buys in. Like, now how do you manage as an SEO if you've sold your marketing director or C-suite or whoever on this idea that you need to run a content campaign in conjunction with your SEO? How do you execute that as an SEO? How are you involved in that? Surely you're not managing that to that high level. There has to be someone else who has editorial charge over the content, but you're influencing the strategy as the SEO, right? Like, there's just so much that we're not covering there that we're assuming when we talk about SEO and content, that I would love to see that gap closed a little bit.
Right. Yeah, in general, I'd like to see more of that practical example of not only how we thought about this, but how we did it.
Yes.
What the actual result was. I mean, there was a lot about, there always is in these sessions, where it's like, this is the idea, this is the ideology to live up to. And I just want to see more practical stuff. I would love, honestly, in your vein of like types of sessions I'd love to see up on the projector where the speaker is controlling the mouse and going through Excel, through SEMrush, whatever tools, like doing SEO work in front of them, explaining, here's my process, this is how I do this ideology, and showing that just live. I would love to see a session like that.
I think that's what made Brittany so good, is that she only talked about things that she done in her time.
Right, it was all experiments. It's like, these are things I've done.
One of my favorite sessions that I've ever seen was Ray Hoffman, Sugar Ray, at, I think it was SMX, literally doing that thing where she had SEMrush pulled up and she's like, here's how I do keyword research. And she like clearly had already prepared like actionable insights, but she literally was just taking us through SEMrush and like talking about it.
Right.
As like someone who is clearly very experienced. It was cool.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what drew me to Ollie's as well, because he was just basically like, he had a whole template, and I believe he shared the Excel doc as well. He was like, this is exactly what you do step by step, and here's what I'm recommending, and here's the Excel doc to do it with, right? So I thought that was really great. So wow, a lot of really great thoughts, guys, and I really appreciate you taking some time here to discuss this today.
Just one last huge shout out to Moz for putting all this together. I know that they do that basically at cost to the organization. I don't believe they make any money. I think they go red on it every year. So huge shout out to Moz for being this leading force in the industry, pulling all this together. It is no small task. I mean, that's got to be significant investment, not just in terms of revenue and cost and all of that, but in terms of man hours and all of that. So huge shout out to Moz for pulling this together and making it such an awesome event.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. And it was just, it was one of this, I keep coming back to this thought in my mind. Is I was proud to be there, right? It wasn't like something that was, I've been to, in other industries before working here, I've been to conferences that it was almost just something you just kind of had to live through. and you may learn a couple of things, you may not. But I never really I haven't really necessarily felt that sense of pride for having been there. It's like it's like CrossFit. It's like how do you know someone does CrossFit? Well, just you don't have to ask because they'll tell you, right? And they'll just wait a moment and they'll tell you. And it's kind of the same thing as like everyone I see, I just want to say, oh my gosh, did you know that I just came back from MozCon? And that's like been my conversation starter for a while. So anyway, that's hard to pull off. That really people that are proud to go to your event. That's a huge bar, a very high bar. So
Truly.
all right, well, that is our video today. Thank you everybody for joining us. You can find us at pageonepower.com. Find us on Twitter at pageonepower. And stay tuned. We have a really great slate of webinars here coming up in the very near future. And you can always find us there and on Twitter. And Cory, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Nich Chimonas had to step out, and so we will be signing off now. And thank you so much for joining us. And remember, link unto others as they would link unto you.